You're on HFY Vanguard, where human spirit lights the darkest corners of the galaxy. Ready yourself. The story is about to unfold.
The metal sword spun lazily around Ren Walker's wrist, glinting under the cold fluorescent lights of diplomatic station Helios 8. He wasn't even looking at it. He didn't need to. His reflexes, honed over nearly a century of war and survival, handled the rotation with unconscious ease. Across the desk, Crail Verticus was sweating through his third shirt of the day. Officially, he was Assistant Subdirector of Interstellar Peace Relations. Unofficially, he was a glorified pencil pusher with a permanent anxiety disorder and a growing ulcer, thanks almost entirely to the man lounging across from him. "I've been talking for exactly 7 minutes and 32 seconds. Crail said, eyes twitching toward the recording unit. "You haven't heard a single word." Ren's boots, caked in mud from at least 3 planets, remained defiantly propped on the polished desk. He raised an eyebrow. "I heard enough. Smile wave, don't punch anyone important." "Got it." Crail massaged his temples. "This isn't just some tribal scuffle in the Orion Dust Belt. This is Gilix. This is the Crimson Moons. This is politics with knives, Ren." "Sounds like my kind of vacation." Crail winced. "This isn't a gladiatorial match. It's a diplomatic exhibition. Symbolic. Everything's symbolic until someone bleeds," Ren replied coolly. The sword stopped spinning. In one fluid motion, he leaned forward, placing the blade's edge gently against Crail's throat. Not enough to cut, just enough to remind the man of the pecking order. Crail froze. His throat made a sound halfway between a squeak and a strangled cough. "Here's what's going to happen," Ren said conversationally. "I'm going to Gilix. I'll do whatever the hell I feel like doing when I get there. You'll sit here, file your little reports, and pretend you're not terrified every time my name comes up on a status log." The door slid open with a soft chime. Ren didn't move the blade. He didn't need to. "Oh," said a new voice rich with amusement. "Am I interrupting a performance review? Or just the usual Tuesday morning threats?" Zara stepped inside like she owned the station. Violet skin shimmering beneath the sterile lights. Her silver hair cascaded over one shoulder, contrasting sharply with her sleek diplomatic uniform that somehow looked like custom evening wear. Ren flicked his eyes toward her but kept the blade steady. "Just discussing vacation plans." She smiled, eyes twinkling. "I love vacation planning. Should I start with the threats against superior officers or jump straight to the illegal weapons violations?" "Relax," Ren said, sliding the blade back into its sheath in one smooth motion. "There won't be any charges." "Right, Crail." Crail let out a strangled sound that might have been agreement. Or prayer, maybe both. Zara sauntered closer, perching on the edge of the desk, close enough that Ren caught a faint scent, crushed jasmine and plasma steel. So she said lightly, "Gilix, huh? Volcanoes. Warrior culture. Very stabby. Sounds like a great first date." Ren smirked. "You offering to be my guide?" "I'm offering to be whatever you need me to be," she purred. "I'm extremely adaptable." "He's 95, Crail muttered. Zara's eyes sparkled. "Perfect. I love a man with experience." Ren stood and hoisted his kit bag over one shoulder. "Old enough to be your great-grandfather's sweetheart. And old enough to know what I want." She followed him to the door, her voice teasing. "You barely look 30. Post-catastrophe longevity treatments. Good genes. Sheer spite." "I'll be here when you get back," Zara said, tracing a finger along his arm. "Assuming you survive meeting the infamous Charney." Ren paused halfway through the door. "What makes you think I won't?" Zara's grin turned predatory. "Because she's never lost a fight, and she's been looking for someone worth losing too." The door hissed shut behind him. Crail exhaled like a man who just survived a bomb defusal. "We are all so incredibly screwed." The ancient stone arena stretched before Ren like a scar carved into the volcanic crust of Gilix. Black glass and crimson dust painted the battlefield in alien shades, catching the light of the twin suns that burned overhead. Around him, the crowd murmured 10,000 beings of every shape and creed, their eyes fixed on the lone Terran descending the combat stairs. He could feel their stares, curious, skeptical, some even pitying. A few were openly confused. No claws, only 2 arms. How is he not combusting in this atmosphere? Ren heard it all in fragments of translated Galactic standard in local dialects. One fur-covered child pointed excitedly with 2 hands, while clapping with the other 2. Mama! Mama! I want to be like the shiny bald man. His mother, a towering insectoid diplomat in ceremonial silk, hissed in horror. Xen, hush. Don't attract the human's attention. Ren almost smiled, almost. The air here tasted like ash and pride. He walked with measured steps across the scorched earth, ignoring the glances, the bets, the jeers, the awe. Weapons of every imaginable design lined the racks near the walls. Energy halberds, plasma whips, electro staves, but he brought only one, the blade sheathed across his back. His sword had no name, no fancy history. It had simply survived 100 battles. That was enough. Across the arena, shadows stirred. A horn sounded deep and guttural, vibrating through his chest like the growl of some ancient god. And she stepped into the light. Charni of the Crimson Moons was not merely a warrior. She was a force of nature wrapped in muscle honor and barely restrained violence. Her silver hair was braided with gleaming metal strands, her skin a smooth marble, pale marked by scars that told more truth than any trophy. Twin blades extended from her wrists like elegant extensions of her wrath. She raised both arms, and the crowd erupted into thunder. I am Charni, daughter of war, she called, her voice, rolling over the stadium without the aid of tech. Killer of champions, breaker of armies. The crowd roared. And I swear upon the moons of my birth, I will marry any pathetic human who defeats me in combat. That got them laughing, loud, ugly, mocking laughter, crude jokes. Cheers. A few tried to throw fruit, but missed by several meters. Ren walked to the center, stopping just outside striking range. He looked at her not like a prey animal. Not like a fool. He looked at her like a man who appreciated art and recognized when it could kill him. Seriously, he said. Charni's eyes narrowed. What? The marriage offer. Is that real, or are you just working the crowd? She blinked. Clearly, that wasn't the expected response. I do not joke about battle, Goodren said, pulling off his coat with practiced grace, revealing lean muscle corded with scars earned over lifetimes. Because I haven't had a decent date in 80 years. And this feels promising. The crowd chuckled nervously. Someone shouted, is he proposing or suicidal? Ren ignored them, studying Charni like a tactician sizing up a living, breathing, heavily armed riddle. You're not hard to look at, he added. But I do have a few logistical questions. Is there paperwork? Witnesses? Some kind of cosmic prenup? Charni's eyes flared with both irritation and confusion. You're mocking me. Ren, he said simply, and I'm not mocking you. I'm making conversation. If I'm going to fight a legend, I'd like to know where the honeymoon might be. For a moment, just a flicker, her expression wavered. Confusion, curiosity, and something else. But then her blades spun into motion, singing through the air in perfect harmony. You talk too much, Ren. I get that a lot. Then she lunged. Charni moved like starlight wrapped in fury. Her blades carved silver arcs through the charged atmosphere, her feet gliding across volcanic glass with impossible precision. She spun flips struck from angles that defied physics. Every movement was lethal poetry. Ren didn't draw his sword. He flowed like water bending around her strikes. Where she pressed forward, he drifted back. Where she swept high, he ducked low. His movements were relaxed, unhurried, like a man browsing weapons in a market instead of fighting for his hypothetical marital future. Stand still, she snarled. Ren smirked. But you're doing so well. She screamed, launching herself into a spinning aerial assault that should have cut him in half. He caught her wrist mid-strike, and with fluid precision, his other arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her forward. For a heartbeat, they were chest to chest, her breath hot against his throat, her body tense like a coiled blade. Then he spun and threw her. Charni hit the dirt hard, her silver hair so carefully woven now streaked with mud and grit. She lay still for a moment, stunned, not by pain, but by the realization she had lost. 10,000 spectators fell into shocked silence. Ren stood over her and extended a hand. So, about that paperwork. She didn't speak. Charni stared up at him from the mud that had never touched her skin before today. For someone like her, a defeat wasn't just a moment of weakness. It was an earthquake that shattered identity. Her blades retracted with a faint hiss, vanishing back into her wrists like ashamed animals retreating into their den. Ren stood above her, hands still outstretched. No smugness, no gloating, just a man offering grace when he had every right to do the opposite. She slapped his hand away and pushed herself to her feet, silver hair caked with dust, her breathing ragged. And then her eyes shimmered, not with fury, with tears. It was the last thing Ren expected from someone who just introduced herself as the breaker of armies. She turned and ran, bolting from the arena, without a word, leaping up the stone steps with the kind of speed only fueled by humiliation and heartbreak. The crowd didn't cheer, didn't boo. They watched in stunned silence, uncertain what they'd witnessed. Did she just cry? Do crimson moons even have tear ducts? Ren picked up his coat and dusted it off, ignoring the chaos behind him. As he stepped off the battlefield, a small, four-armed child yelled behind him, "Mama, mama, I want to throw girls into the mud too." Ren almost smiled again. Almost. The guest quarters were perched on the 5th floor of the diplomatic complex, an ostentatious glass and stone tower overlooking lava fields that glowed like molten veins beneath the alien twilight. Ren sat at the edge of his bed, methodically cleaning his sword. It hadn't seen combat today. Didn't matter. Maintenance was ritual, a way to ground himself, to keep his hands busy while his mind wandered into places he didn't often visit. The comms panel chimed. Krail's face materialized on the screen, pale and sweating. Again. "What the hell did you do, Walker?" Ren didn't look up. Attended a diplomatic exhibition, smiled, waved, followed protocol. "You threw the future wife of Prince Grayar into the dirt." "I didn't throw her into anything. She threw herself at me. I just helped her finish the motion." Krail's face turned green. "Ren, do you have any idea what you've just started?" "Yeah," Ren said softly, sliding the sword back into its sheath. "A war. Maybe." Before Krail could spiral into another meltdown, Ren disconnected the call. Later that night, when the moons had risen high and double shadows danced across the stone walls, Ren stood on the balcony, watching the lava flows like glowing rivers beneath an alien sky. He didn't hear her approach, but he felt her. Charny stepped into view slowly, her figure backlit by the soft shimmer of crystal-lit flora. She was no longer in armor. Her clothing was simple now, civilian, still practical, still battle-ready, but free of symbolism. Her silver hair had been washed, her face scrubbed clean. The only dirt left was emotional. She didn't speak right away. She just stood beside him, staring out at the same landscape, then quietly come to gloat. "No." "Come to apologize." "No." Silence stretched. It was uncomfortable, not for Ren, but for her. She was a creature of certainty, forged in the fire of triumph. But tonight she was ash. "I didn't mean to humiliate you," Ren said eventually. She laughed bitterly. "You defeated me in front of 10,000 beings. Humiliation was inevitable. You're a hell of a fighter. Not good enough. Good enough to make me work for it." She turned toward him, studying his face as if she hadn't truly seen it until now. "You barely moved. I threw everything at you." "I noticed. That spin kick from the 3rd sequence, your grandmother teach you that?" Her eyes widened. "She said it was for arrogant enemies." I was flattered. Another silence, then she'd be ashamed of me. "Why, because you lost?" "No." Her voice cracked. "Because I'm crying like a child instead of demanding a rematch." Ren looked at her. Really looked. The proud warrior with the polished image had cracked, revealing a woman who'd never been allowed to lose. Never been allowed to feel anything but victory. "You want a rematch?" he asked softly. "No," she whispered. "I want to know why you let me live." He frowned. "What makes you think I let you do anything?" "Because you're Ren Walker." His heart froze. "You know who I am. I researched every fighter the diplomatic corps might send. The Terrans don't send nobodies to a ring like that." She stepped closer, her eyes piercing now. "You're Admiral Ren Walker, the Sword of Broken Planets, the man who held the Sirius line when the rest of the fleet abandoned it. That was 60 years ago. You were 35, and you haven't aged a day." Ren sighed. "Post-catastrophe longevity treatments. We age slower now. Doesn't mean we live better." Charny smiled for the first time since the arena. "Happy early birthday, then." He smirked. "Thanks." They stood there a while longer. Then Charny whispered almost to herself, "For what it's worth, I meant what I said." Ren blinked. "About what?" "The marriage proposal, if you're serious." "You don't even know me. I know you're brave enough to fight a legend. Honest enough to not finish a fight you've already won. and strong enough to stand alone when others would beg for backup. She reached out, tracing the scar along his forearm. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "A monster." Ren looked at the stars. "All the stories are true, every one of them. But you're still here, and I don't plan to leave." The breakfast hall of Jilix's diplomatic complex was a monument to elegance. Polished obsidian floors reflected morning light that filtered through crystalline skylights, scattering rainbows across tables adorned with exotic dishes. Fruit pulsed with bioluminescence. Meat steamed in iridescent shades that defied classification. To Ren, it looked like someone had thrown a rave inside a jungle. He was halfway through a piece of something vaguely resembling blue mango when he noticed Charney wasn't eating. She sat across from him, silver hair braided and freshly cleaned, scarred fingers drumming nervously against the edge of her plate. It was a subtle thing, but the rhythm was wrong, stilted, uncertain. "You're really leaving today?" she asked, not quite meeting his eyes. Ren paused mid-bite. That was the plan. Of course, she said too quickly. "Important human business, I'm sure." He raised an eyebrow. "Are you mad I didn't say goodbye yet? Or mad I'm not taking you with me?" She didn't answer. Before he could push further, the hall's towering double doors exploded inward with a boom that rattled silverware and sent diplomats scrambling under tables. Prince Greyar entered like a storm dressed in royal arrogance. His indigo skin was darkened with fury, golden robes flaring behind him like liquid wrath. He was flanked by 6 guards in ceremonial armor, more for show than survival. But the scariest thing about him wasn't the guards. It was the way he was smiling. "You," he hissed, locking eyes with Ren across the now silent dining hall. "You two-armed meat sack." Ren didn't stand. He finished chewing his bite. Charney moved first, instinctively reaching toward her wrist, where her blades usually extended only to find bare skin. She had come unarmed, a gesture of peace. Ren placed a hand gently over hers. "Don't," he murmured. "This is between him and me." Greyar stormed toward them, guards fanning out to block all exits. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" the prince roared. "What you've cost me." "Enlighten me," Ren said mildly, setting down his fork. "You humiliated my bride-to-be in front of the galaxy, made me look like a fool." Ren's grin was lazy, dangerous. "Nature beat me to it." Gasps rippled through the hall. Greyar's face shifted from blue to a shade of royal purple. He lunged forward and grabbed Ren by the collar, hauling him up with surprising strength. "I challenge you to—" The slap cracked across the room like a gunshot. Greyar staggered back, one hand on his cheek. Blood trickled from the corner of Ren's mouth where the prince's grip had bitten into skin. Ren didn't move. His eyes were cold. "Feel better?" he asked. Greyar's hand rose again, curled into a trembling fist. This time Ren caught it mid-swing and didn't let go. "You know," Ren said, tightening his grip until bones creaked, "I've let a lot of things slide over the decades. Orders, threats, screaming politicians with weak chins and smaller brains." He stepped in closer. "But there's one line you never cross." "What's that?" Greyar spat. Ren's eyes went flat. "You don't talk about my family." Greyar's lips twisted. "Your family, I'll find them. Your mother, your father, your sister. He never finished the sentence. The sword flashed. Steel met flesh, and Greyar screamed. His severed hand hit the floor, still clenched into a fist. Blood sprayed across the polished stone, staining centuries of diplomacy in an instant. The prince fell to his knees, clutching the bleeding stump face contorted in disbelief. You cut off my hand." Ren wiped the blade on the prince's robe. "I could have taken your head. Consider this a lesson in boundaries." The guards finally remembered they were guards. Weapons came up. Ren's blade sang again, stopping an inch from the nearest soldier's throat. The man froze. "Anyone else want to discuss my family?" Ren asked the room. No one moved. "Good." Charney rose slowly, the ghost of her former self now sharpening with clarity. "You should get that looked at," she told the prince casually. "Blood loss can be fatal." Greyar whimpered, golden robes blooming crimson around him. "This isn't over. My father will." Ren sheathed his sword. "Your father can book an appointment." Medical staff rushed in, slipping on the prince's blood. The smell of ozone and arterial spray clung to the air. Ren walked out without a glance. Charney followed, her expression unreadable. "That was," she began. "Necessary," Ren said. "I was going to say impressive." Outside, the sun had risen high over the lava fields. The wind carried dust and the faint scent of scorched ambition. Ren said nothing for a while. Then, I warned him. He was never going to listen. I know. She paused, glancing at him sideways. You meant it, didn't you? Every word. Charney exhaled slowly. He'll retaliate, Goodren said. Let him come. It's been too quiet lately. She looked at him, truly looked, and for the first time her gaze held not just admiration or attraction, but something deeper. Loyalty. You've made an enemy of an empire, she said softly. No, he corrected. I've reminded them that humanity still bites. The spaceport platform shimmered under the midday suns, the heat waves turning metal structures into liquid mirages. Ren stood near the transport ramp, boots planted, arms crossed, staring at his diplomatic courier ship, sleek, fast-built for silent insertions and even quieter exits. Leaving so soon, Zara asked from behind him, voice laced with honey and sarcasm. She wore something that walked the razor's edge between professionalism and temptation. Satin folded into the vague shape of an ambassador's robe, yet somehow clinging like a second skin. Two secretaries flanked her, one scaled like a living opal, the other green-skinned with compound eyes and the nervous energy of a caffeinated squirrel. We had one conversation, Ren replied. Zara smirked. A very intense conversation. You held a sword to my boss's throat. I found it stimulating. The scaled assistant giggled. Zara has a thing for dangerous men. I have a thing for competent men, Zara corrected. Danger is just a delightful side effect. Ren adjusted the strap of his kit bag. Well, I've got a long flight and no time for pillow diplomacy. Shame, Zara said, stepping closer. If you ever find yourself back in this sector, I'm very good at debriefings. She slipped a small data chip into his palm, her fingers lingering just a second too long. Charney, standing a few feet away with arms crossed and an amused expression, tilted her head. Is this how human mating rituals work? She asked. Because it's fascinating. No, Ren said dryly. This is how desperate secretaries work. Zara laughed. I like her. She's got bite. The ship captain emerged from the ramp, a grizzled vet with half a cybernetic face and a voice like ground gravel. Loaded and ready, Admiral Walker, Earth in 47 hours. Ren nodded and took a final glance around the platform. Then everything exploded. The blast hit like a god's punch. One moment, the diplomatic courier gleamed in the sun. The next, it was a ball of expanding, white-hot plasma. The shock wave hurled Ren backward. Only his enhanced reflexes saved him from becoming smoldering debris. He landed hard, rolling across the stone platform as fire and metal rained down around him. His ears rang. Smoke stung his eyes, his vision blurred. Screams. Zara was 10 meters away, her luminous skin blistered and blackened, barely breathing. The green-skinned assistant was gone, vaporized, leaving behind only a shadow scorched into the stone. The scaled one lay still motionless, limbs twisted unnaturally. Charney stumbled toward Zara, dropping to her knees, checking for a pulse. She's alive, she said, voice strained. Barely. Ren's jaw clenched. His body ached, muscles screaming, but it wasn't pain that burned inside him. It was rage. Then the voice came. From above, mocking, familiar. Magnificent, isn't it? Prince Greyar stood on a maintenance gantry 50 meters up, dressed in regal combat robes. His severed arm had been replaced with a crude mechanical prosthetic, unfinished angry metal, hissing with exposed servos. A grenade launcher rested against his shoulder, smoke still curling from its barrel. You missed, Ren growled. I wasn't aiming for you, meat sack. I was aiming for anyone stupid enough to associate with you. Greyar grinned like a demon. How does it feel? Walker, knowing your presence kills the innocent. Ren's hands trembled, not with fear, with restraint. He began to count. 1, 2, 3. Oh, but I brought you a gift, Greyar called. A little incentive to keep things interesting. Guards emerged from behind crates and bulkheads, dozens of them escorting chained prisoners. Ren froze. So did Charney. No, she whispered. Her voice cracked like ice breaking. They were all silver-haired, beaten, dirty, gagged. Her family. Her mother bloodied and bruised. Her father limping, eyes filled with defiant fire. Her siblings chained, one of them barely more than a teenager. And a child, a 6-year-old boy, the nephew, Mika. Charney fell to her knees. Greyar laughed. Lovely, aren't they? Though full of spirit. Your sister's boy asked about you every day, told him you were dead. He cried. A lot. It was adorable. Let them go, Charney screamed. Oh, I don't think so. They're excellent leverage. I plan to keep them close, especially during our wedding night. 4, 5, 6. You bastard, Ren whispered. Oh, please. Spare me the righteous fury. You're no hero. You're a monster on a leash. But I've cut the leash now. Grayar gestured, and the guards began to drag the family back toward a transport. Charney's blade snapped out with a shriek of metal, but her limbs trembled, frozen in place. She was seconds from a breakdown. Or an explosion. Then Ren moved. He didn't speak, didn't shout, didn't wait for orders. He simply ran, up the struts, over railings, across the burning wreckage. The Admiral of Fire had returned, and vengeance had a name. Ren moved like a weapon unchained. His boots slammed into the maintenance platform deck with a thud that echoed like thunder. Grayar didn't even have time to finish gloating. Ren's fist collided with the prince's throat, cutting off the next smug line before it was born. Grayar choked, stumbling backward, clawing at his mechanical throat with his good hand. Guards, he wheezed. They came from every angle, 6 elite warriors armored in ceremonial crimson, their weapons humming with deadly purpose. But Charney was already moving. She launched from the lower platform like a missile of vengeance. Her wrist blades extended in full fury as she tore into the nearest guard, her momentum carrying them both off the edge. They hit the lower scaffolding with a sickening crunch. Only she stood back up. The next one charged. Charney duck's spun drove her blade through the gap beneath his ribs. Blood sprayed across the metal floor in a perfect arc. Ren drew a sword with a whisper of steel. He didn't yell, didn't roar, just sliced through the third guard with a single fluid motion shoulder to hip. The man collapsed in 2 pieces, still trying to scream. Another tried to flank him. Ren didn't even look. He stepped sideways, let the attacker's blade pass harmlessly by, and elbowed him in the temple with bone-breaking force. The man dropped, twitching. The 5th pulled a blaster. Ren's sword moved faster. The barrel clattered to the floor, followed by a forearm, then a scream. By the time the 6th guard raised his weapon, it was too late. Ren was already there. A heartbeat later, silence. Only the distant hum of platform engines and the dying moans of Grayar's soldiers remained. But the prince was gone. Ren's eyes scanned the area, then landed on a retreating shuttle just lifting off from the hidden platform beyond the gantry. The prisoners were aboard, chained, terrified, gone. No, Charney screamed, her voice raw. She sprinted to the edge of the platform, too late. The shuttle soared upward, vanishing into the burning sky. Its trail shimmered like a scar across the heavens. Speakers crackled overhead. Grayar's voice echoed from hidden arrays. You two are impressive, I'll admit, but this is far from over. His voice shifted into something darker, colder. You're going to watch them die, one by one, starting with the little one. A child's scream rang out through the comms. High, terrified. Mika! Charney collapsed to her knees, blades retracting. Her hands trembled. She didn't sob. Not yet. She was too stunned, too shattered. Ren knelt beside her, placed a steady hand on her shoulder. We'll get them back. Her voice was broken. How? He's got them on his father's ship, Imperial class. Even if we reach orbit, we will reach it, Ren interrupted, eyes burning like twin suns. And we'll make him pay for every scream they have uttered, every bruise, every chain. She looked up at him, mud streaked on her cheeks, blood on her arms, fear in her eyes. Why, she whispered, why would you do this for me? Ren didn't answer immediately. Instead, he helped her to her feet. Then he looked into her soul. Because you're the first person in decades who sees me as more than a name in a war record. Because when you cry, I don't feel stronger, I feel human again. And because I've lost enough family for one lifetime. Charney swallowed hard. You don't even know them. I don't have to. I know you. That's enough. She stared at him like he was insane. Then, she nodded. Just once. I'm with you. Ren turned to the wreckage behind them. The scorched crater where their transport had been. The charred bodies. Zara being airlifted by emergency medics. The smoking sky. He clenched his fists. I'm done letting monsters run the galaxy. That night, they sat at the edge of the crater. The stars above were bright, cruelly indifferent to the pain below. The moons painted their silhouettes in silver. They said little. There was nothing to say. Until Ren broke the silence. Tell me about them. Charney was quiet for a long time. Then, my father was a metalsmith. Hands like stone. Voice like sand. He used to sing while he worked. My mother, Beatrice, ran a school for young warriors. She taught strength was meaningless without honor. And your siblings? 3. Kess is the oldest. Joran writes poems and thinks they're war chants. Thel, she's just a kid. She was supposed to be married next month. Her voice cracked. And Mika, he listens to every story I tell him. He thinks I'm invincible. You are. No, I'm not. She turned toward him, eyes shining with unshed tears. But I will be, for him. Ren's hand found hers. She didn't pull away. Then we go get them. We'll be hunted, she said. Grayar won't stop. His father definitely won't. Let them come, Ren replied. Let them bring every soldier, every assassin, every fleet. He leaned closer, forehead touching hers. Because now they've made it personal. Salvarus. The name alone made senators stammer, warlords pause, and fleets correct their course to avoid proximity. It was the Imperial Crown World, a triad of hollowed-out asteroids fused by ancient gravitational engineering, layered in spires of impossible metal, built with ego and blood. Each emperor had added their own monuments to power, turning the city into a grotesque palace, a galactic cathedral to control. And now into its rotting heart walked 2 ghosts. Ren piloted the stolen shuttle with the calm precision of a man who'd flown through 1,000 battles and survived all but one. Beside him, Charny checked her blades for the 5th time. Her face was calm, but her jaw was tight. The shuttle's forged credentials listed them as waste reclamation contractors, and no one ever looked twice at garbage haulers. Remind me again, Charny muttered, eyeing the landing sequence. Why we're not just dropping from orbit and slicing our way to the throne room? Because Micah is still alive, Ren said simply. Charny stiffened. Right, she said. Smart. I hate smart. Smart keeps him breathing. They docked in one of the lower maintenance bays, dirty, half abandoned, the kind of place where bodies went missing and reports got lost in bureaucracy. The air tasted like rust and burnt oil. Perfect cover. They moved like shadows through service corridors, avoiding main pathways, cutting power to surveillance nodes as they went. The entire lower level was a sewer of political rot cells disguised as storage processing units that disappeared people too inconvenient for the throne. Block 7 was their first stop, a detention center masquerading as a shipping office. Ren disarmed the guards with terrifying ease. 2 were knocked out before they realized anything had gone wrong. Charny hacked the locks, and inside they found 37 prisoners. Most were political dissidents, writers, teachers, artists, veterans who'd once said the word equality too loud. We're freeing them, Charny asked. Ren didn't answer. He was already unlocking shackles. From the crowd stepped a stocky man with grease-stained hands, a wide grin, and a soup ladle strapped to his belt like a sidearm. Thomas Kell, he said cheerfully, cook by trade, revolutionary by necessity. You don't look like a fighter, Charny said. I feed fighters, he replied, and I smuggle pamphlets about the inherent corruption of hereditary power structures. Ren actually blinked. I like him, he said. Thomas grinned wider. The high security wing is 1 level above the throne chamber. That's where they keep the real threats. I've been feeding them for 6 months. He looked at Charny, his smile softening. There's a little boy in there, silver hair, big eyes, sharp as a whip, keeps asking when his aunt is coming to save him. Charny froze. Is he hurt? Scared. Hungry. But he's alive. Your sister Thel. She's a lioness. Bit a guard last week when he tried something. Ren nodded once. How many guards? 20. Maybe more. And the throne room. Thomas's face darkened. The Crimson Guard. Enhanced. Cybernetic. Absolute loyalty. 100 of them. Maybe more. Charny exhaled slowly. We'll die trying. Ren smiled cold quiet. Only if we're careless. They approached the throne chamber from above through a maintenance shaft designed to service the massive fire sconces that lined the Imperial Hall. It was a forgotten system bypassed decades ago. No one expected anything to come from the ceiling, which made it perfect. Charny peered down through the grate. The throne room stretched like a nightmare beneath them. Vaulted ceilings, columns carved from the bones of extinct species, and at the center, the throne of Greygoth. It was built from bodies, literally. A sculpted mass of preserved enemies fused in agony, their faces twisted into eternal screams. Arms stretched into armrests. Rib cages became supports. Eyes long dead stared outward forever. On it sat Emperor Greygoth. He looked less like a ruler and more like something grown in darkness, ancient, twisted, sustained by tech and cruelty. Red eyes glowed in a face lined by centuries of sin. Beside him knelt Grayar. His prosthetic hand gleamed. His real one was still gone. And he was trembling. The Crimson Guard flanked the dais in precise formation, silent, motionless, lethal. "This is suicide," Charney whispered. Ren drew a sword. "No, this is the end of an empire." They dropped through the grate like divine retribution. The first 3 guards died before their boots hit the ground. Ren's sword sliced through reinforced armor like paper, his movements surgical. Charney was fire and thunder dancing between blows, blades carving crimson trails across flesh and steel. Chaos erupted. Screams, energy blasts, fleeing nobles. But amid the slaughter, one sound began to rise. A whisper, then a chant. That's him, Ren Walker, the Sword of Broken Planets. He held the line at Sirius. Crimson Guard hesitated, paused. That was all Ren needed. He drove through their hesitation like a scythe. The Emperor rose from his abomination of a throne. For the first time in memory, fear flickered in his eyes. "You," he said, voice like dust, "you're supposed to be dead." "Retirement," Ren said. "Overrated." The throne room was drowning in screams. Nobles scattered like insects, robes dragging, faces pale. Crimson Guards fell one by one, not to overwhelming firepower, but to the impossible efficiency of 2 warriors who had nothing left to lose. Reen moved like inevitability. Each step forward was carved in blood. Each strike of his blade rewrote the Empire's future. Charney was right beside him, her silver hair streaked with red, her blades flashing like twin meteors through a storm. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. They had become the message. And then, silence. The last of the guards fell gurgling. All that remained was the Emperor still seated on his grotesque throne, and Prince Grayar collapsed at his feet, prosthetic, hand-sparking eyes wide with terror. Graygoth rose. He didn't draw a weapon, didn't scream for more soldiers. He simply stood and looked at his son with a disappointment deep enough to crush sons. "You had one task," he said. His voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. "Secure the alliance, marry the girl, maintain power." Grayar whimpered. He cut off my hand. "And you deserved it," Graygoth snapped. Then to the horror of every survivor in the room, he said, "Guards, execute my son." What remained of the Crimson Guard didn't hesitate. 3 blaster shots rang out. Prince Grayar's body dropped like a discarded toy, his robes catching fire from the energy bursts. The smell of scorched arrogance filled the chamber. Charney flinched. Even she hadn't expected that. "Your grievance is satisfied," the Emperor said coldly, turning his eyes to Ren. "Now we can negotiate." Ren took a step forward. The room held its breath. "That's not enough," he said quietly. Graygoth raised an eyebrow. "No?" Ren turned slightly to glance at Charney, his voice softened. "It's not enough." The Emperor frowned. "You are irrational, Walker. Emotional. What will you gain by slaying me?" Ren's sword moved. No sound, just motion, a whisper through the air. And then, Graygoth's head fell from his shoulders. It bounced twice on the throne steps and rolled to a stop at the feet of his remaining soldiers. His body stayed upright for 1 second longer. Then it slumped forward, sliding off the throne. The chamber fell into a silence deeper than death. Then, a whisper. From somewhere in the shadows, "Hail the new Emperor." Another voice joined it. Then another. Then dozens. "Hail Walker, hail Admiral." Ren turned slowly to face the crowd. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "I'm not your Emperor." He sheathed his blade. "I'm not your anything." He pointed at the grotesque throne. "But if any of you put another corpse in a chair and call it power, I'll come back. And next time I won't stop with just the head." One of the nobles stepped forward, a colonel in Imperial Navy dress armor, blood-spattered eyes wide. "Then who rules?" he asked. "Who decides?" Ren looked at them all. "You do." 100 people blinked. "Form a council, hold an election, flip a damn coin. But if this place turns back into what it was," he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. They got the message. The high-security wing was exactly where Thomas said it would be. He met them at the service entrance, sweating and grinning, ladle still strapped to his belt. "Took your time," he said. "Almost started a soup riot while waiting." Ren clapped him on the shoulder. "Good man." The door slid open. Inside, 6 prisoners chained together, barely conscious, but very much alive. Charney froze. Her mother, Kaylin, looked up with bruised eyes and a broken smile. "I told them," she whispered, "you'd come." The family rushed into each other's arms. Tears, laughter, relief. A small blur of silver and brown launched into Charney's chest. "Mika," she sobbed, cradling him. "You came," the boy whispered. "You really came." His eyes peeked over her shoulder, locked onto Ren. Is that him? He asked. The human, the one who's gonna marry you. Ren blinked. Charney flushed scarlet. I brought him, she said. Mika tilted his head. Are you a real hero? Ren knelt beside him. No, kid, he said softly. I'm just a soldier. Mika nodded, perfectly serious. That's what heroes always say. Hours later, the observation deck above the city offered a view of Silveris's true shape. The sky was full of fire. Destroyers hovered in standby. Shuttles moved civilians out of danger zones. High-ranking officials fled the capital. Others quietly requested council positions. A new government was forming, out of fear, yes, but also out of hope. Inside the deck, Ren and Charney stood side by side, watching the stars wheel above them. So, she asked, what now? Ren didn't hesitate. Now we go home. She blinked. Where's home? He turned toward her, voice low. Wherever you are. Her smile came slow and sure. That's the cheesiest thing you've ever said. I've been hanging out with revolutionary soup chefs. Lucky me. She reached for his hand. He took it. And for the first time in decades, Ren Walker let himself believe in something better than war. 5 years later, the morning sun spilled golden light across a house built from the bones of two fallen empires. It wasn't grand. No gleaming towers or fancy shields. Just stone walls taken from the ruins of imperial bunkers and alliance outposts, reforged into something peaceful, something real. A house on a hill surrounded by grass, wind, and the occasional alien bird that screamed like a rusty pipe. Inside, Ren Walker sat at a wooden table sharpening his sword with rhythmic precision, not because he needed it, because it was ritual, because hands that had once destroyed fleets needed something quiet to do. Behind him, mounted on the wall, hung 3 blades. His own, Charney's twin wrist blades, and a child-sized practice sword. He smiled without looking up. You're off balance. Out in the garden, Charney turned her head slightly. Her silver hair streaked now with glints of motherly patience, and unspoken laughter shimmered in the morning sun. You're not even watching, she called. Still true, he said, voice amused. Charney moved through sword forms like she was born from steel fluid precise. Across from her, a small boy mimicked her motions with wide eyes and determination. Kale, 5 years old, sharp like his father, fast like his mother, and loud like every child who thought practice was an adventure. No, Kale, Charney said gently. Feel the weight. Don't fight it. Let the blade move with you. Kale adjusted his grip. Tried again. Better. Ren watched through the window now, pride and something softer sitting in his chest. The door creaked open behind him. Charney walked in sweat on her brow and joy in her step. You slept with your sword again, she said, kissing the top of his head. I slept with you. The sword just happened to be between us. Whose safety was that for? Everyone's. You kick in your sleep. I do not kick. You screamed the name of a long-dead alien warlord and elbowed me in the kidney. It was a very intense dream. Ren leaned back, looking up at her. I love you, by the way. Obviously, she replied, smirking. You built me a house from the corpse of an empire. They laughed. The kind of laughter that only happens when you've bled beside someone, cried with them, and survived what was supposed to kill you. Then Kale stormed in, holding the wooden sword aloft. Dad, was it true? Were you really the emperor? Ren blinked. No, but you beat the emperor. The bad one beat himself. I just helped him fall over. Kale frowned, gears turning. Then why does everyone get weird when they hear your name? Ren paused, set down the whetstone, looked his son in the eye. Because I've already lost everything, once he said quietly. Kale tilted his head. But you have us now. Ren's throat tightened. Yeah, he whispered. Now I have everything. Outside, shadows passed overhead. In the distance, ships moved against the sky, bearing the emblem of the Council of Worlds. A new order, a fragile peace. 2 crossed swords, one long, one curved, framing twin blades in a circle of unity. The symbol of what came after, of what Ren and Charney had made possible. Ren stood stretching old bones wrapped in a not-so-old body. The benefits of post-catastrophe gene therapy. Kale tugged his hand. Can you teach me how to count to 10 in war numbers? Ren smiled. Why war numbers? Because Mom says when you're really angry, counting is the only thing that stops you from cutting someone's face off. Charney walked in sipping tea. I said that, did I? Ren gave her a sideways look. You've said worse. Context matters. True. Kale looked between them. So, what's the difference between justice and revenge? Ren crouched, meeting him at eye level. Justice protects people. Revenge just makes more enemies. Kale nodded slowly the way kids do when storing something they won't understand until they're older, but already know it's important. Then he grinned. Can I hit a training dummy now? Ren kissed his forehead. Only if you count to 10 first. Later that night when the stars were out and the wind had calmed, Ren and Charney sat on the porch watching Kale sleep through the glass, his practice sword clutched like a teddy bear. You ever think we'd make it this far? Charney asked. Ren shook his head. Didn't think I'd make it past 50. You made it to 101, which is cheating, he muttered. Modern medicine and spite. She leaned on his shoulder. I still have dreams, sometimes, she whispered. The prison, my family screaming, Mika calling for me. I know. I don't know if I'll ever stop hearing them. You don't have to. She looked at him. You carried ghosts too, didn't you? Still do. And yet here we are. Yeah, he said, voice low. Here we are. They fell into silence, comfortable and full. Then from somewhere above came the faint roar of engines. Ships in the night. Symbols of order. Symbols of the past. Charney sighed. If war comes back, Ren's hand tightened around hers. Then we remind the galaxy why legends exist. They called him many names. The Sword of Broken Planets. The Admiral who refused to kneel. The ghost of Helios 8. The man who killed an empire with a whisper. But to the child in the refugee camp on Callus 5, he was simply the one who made the soldiers leave. To the old woman teaching history in a half-bombed university on Ranos, he was the reason I can still teach without chains. And to the warriors who once served the Crimson Guard and now farmed rice on reclaimed soil, he was the man who showed us mercy when we expected death. Legends are born in fire, but Ren Walker's legend lived on in the quiet, in the freedom to speak, in the right to choose, in the hope that no tyrant is untouchable. 20 years later, on a neutral moon orbiting the twin worlds of Valus Prime, a museum opened its gates. Not of conquest, not of empire, of truth. Its central exhibit held three things: a scorched sword, dulled but clean, a pair of curved wrist blades silvered with age, a child's wooden training weapon broken and repaired again and again. Above them, engraved in 10 galactic languages, were words that echoed like prophecy. No throne survives the will of the free. Visitors from every species walked its halls. Aliens with tails, horns, fur, feathers. Humans in every shade and shape. And always children stopped at the final plaque where a recording played in a calm, steady voice. If you ever feel small, like your voice means nothing, remember this? One man said no. One woman refused to break. And together they rewrote the stars. On Earth, old soldiers lit candles on Memorial Hill. Not just for those who died, but for those who lived after doing the impossible. A weathered monument bore no face, only words. Ren Walker, not emperor, not God. Just a man. That was enough. On the once imperial capital, Silveris, the new council gathered once a year at the central chamber. No throne existed anymore, only a ring of seats. And in the center beneath glass, a single boot print burned into the marble floor. His, left behind during the fall of the old order. They never cleaned it, never would. And somewhere beyond charted space where the stars still dared to shine without permission, a quiet home stood on a hill, built of stone, filled with laughter. Inside, a boy with silver hair and dark eyes practiced sword forms in the garden, guided by a patient hand and a steady voice. Charney had aged like someone who learned how to love without fear. And Ren Walker, he stood with gray in his beard, fire in his chest, and peace for once in his hands. Kale returned from practice now a young man. He tossed his wooden sword aside, grabbed a data pad, and sat next to his father under the old tree. They wrote about you again, Kale said, scrolling. Lies, Ren asked. Mostly Kale grinned. Good. Charney brought tea, sat between them, leaned her head on Ren's shoulder. You still think they'll forget you? I hope they do, he said. Kale looked confused. Why? Because the galaxy shouldn't need men like me anymore. But what if it does? Ren looked toward the stars, quiet for a long moment. Then I'll still be here. He didn't say how. Didn't need to. Because legends don't end. They echo among the stars, in the whispers of children, in the fire behind every rebellion, and in the hearts of those who dare to say, I am human, I am free, and I will not kneel.